introduction, or do you just plan to hodl through all the 80% downturns?
Oh, wow. We've made it. We've made it to the final session of the day. A round of applause for everyone for coming here today and for having a bunch of fun. I'm seeing a lot of smiles on faces, which I hope means everyone's enjoying themselves. It is a long day and there's a lot of information to absorb. And so historically, this panel that closes out the day that I've moderated for the last, now 3 years, is kind of our let's kick things into another gear kind of panel where we go a bit woo-woo, we go a bit crazy, we explore some ideas that maybe is a little bit left of center, not in a political way, just weird. And you know, who better to join me on that exploration than these three gentlemen who probably need no introduction, but Knut, Scott, and Michael, some of the sharpest and craziest minds we have in this Bitcoin community. So I'm absolutely blessed to be able to moderate this discussion. And me being me, I've put absolutely zero effort into preparing for this conversation. So this is 100% off the cuff. I haven't even spoken to these gentlemen about what we're going to be talking about because I don't even know what we're going to be talking about. But I will take you on a little bit of a historical journey over the last two Bitcoin Alives. So in 2023, when we first did our first Bitcoin Alive, we sat on the same stage. Actually, Knut was here as well 2 years ago. And the panel was called Bitcoin is Alive. And we explored the idea of Bitcoin being more than just code, more than just money, but like being a living, breathing organism, which, again, pretty freaking crazy. And then last year, which Michael also joined for that panel 2 years ago, he's a regular. Again, we can't really say no to Michael, and we're going to find out in a few minutes why that is. But we explored the idea of Bitcoin is hope. You know, our personal journeys to Bitcoin, what it's done in changing our thinking, and what it does in terms of, you know, lifting us from being a pessimistic mindset into an optimistic mindset. So that sets the scene on what we've historically done a little bit in this discussion. And actually, today's topic, Bitcoin Liveth on, actually was came up by Dylan, one of the other organizers in this. Maybe he should be up here delivering this. But so yeah, we're going to explore some pretty crazy ideas. But first of all, I might just let the gentlemen take us in any direction that they like, and I'll start with Knut because I know Knut's probably chomping at the bit to get onto the mic.
Yeah, I get a deja vu feeling from this because Michael and I were up on this stage 2 years ago, and I called everyone in the room a homo. So why don't we start there? So let me explain that, unwind that a little bit. So the thesis, the Bitcoin liveth is a good way to put it because I think we are part of the same organism now. And let me explain that for a bit. We are not all Satoshi. Only Satoshi is Satoshi, regardless of if it's a he or a she or anything in between, or a group of people or an alien or, you know, someone else. But what I mean by we are all Satoshis is that I alluded to this before, that the Satoshis don't live on the internet. They don't live on the blockchain or the time chain even. Because the only thing that makes a Satoshi valuable is like they're scarce and we have the ability to move them to one another. So it's a way of communicating between people. And the only reason that you say that you own a Bitcoin is because you find it very unlikely that anyone else has the same piece of information you do. The 12 magic words, so to speak, are actually magic because they can unlock this ability for you to transfer value to your fellow human being. What that means is these 12 words, or the private key, or the location of your hardware wallet, or the password to whatever thing you have, whatever setup you have for your Bitcoins, is a secret you keep from everyone else. And that secret always resides in someone's head. So when the US government says that they have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, what they mean is that some guy at Coinbase has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Because at the end of the day, all Bitcoins reside within people's heads. What that means to me is that we're now not only fellow human beings, we are actually the same organism because we have this network, this, what do you call it, this cardiovascular system of information now able to flow between human beings. And like I always like to bring this up. You can point a gun at someone's head and say, give me all your Bitcoins, but you cannot know how much that person owns. Theoretically, every human on Earth could own all the Bitcoins if we all have the same information. We can make an educated guess of how much someone else owns, but we cannot prove it. So if I threaten you and tell you, give me all your Bitcoin, you can give me a fraction of them. And I have no way to verify that you didn't own more. In the long run, as number goes up, that means that it will become less and less profitable to aggress against other people. It's the non-aggression principle in a very real sense of the word. Violence and forceful interactions become less profitable. So a better way to get something of value back from the other person is to just give something of value back, which is what free trade is. So we're getting towards this world where free trade is more and more profitable, and violence and interventionism is less and less profitable. And make no mistake, fiat currencies are violent. They have a bit of violence baked into them, since someone else can print money and therefore dilute the value of what you're using as a medium of exchange over space and time. So we have this ability now to just be fucking awesome to one another. That's why we're a bunch of homos. Not just cunts and bastards. That's because it's one planet now, not only this continent. And this gathering of Bitcoiners here may seem small, but you motherfuckers exist everywhere, in every one-horse town on Earth. I travel a lot, and I see Bitcoiners everywhere. We're absolutely everywhere, and we're growing in numbers. And Bitcoin is winning so hard. It's hard to fathom if you haven't really understood what this thing is now. It's a path towards peace. It's a path towards only consensual interactions between people. It's a world where 8 billion people are working for the benefit of 8 billion people, where all marginal costs, all prices fall to the marginal cost of production of that good or service. And if you measure from the Bitcoin lens, if you see the world through these truth goggles that Bitcoin provide you with, you can actually see this happening. Your house is getting cheaper and cheaper if you denominate in the correct value. And they say Bitcoin is for enemies, but there will be no enemies in the future. We will all be friends. So I would say shitcoins are for enemas, and fiat is for enemies. So yeah, where do you want to take it from there, Scott?
Jump in wherever you want, Scott.
Yeah, that's
take your pick.
A great entry point.
Or exit.
The entry point is that for the enema?
Entry point is the enemas.
Exit liquidity.
Exit liquidity. So I've heard you talk before about this idea that when someone has memorized their seed phrase, that they sort of effectively become the Bitcoin. And it's like human symbiosis with Bitcoin. And it has me wondering about this concept of wave-particle duality. And in theoretical physics, we have things that are subjects and we have things that are objects. And Bitcoin obviously is an object that exists in the physical world. There are things that we observe, and simultaneously we can memorize this information, and it is purely information, things that we think about and exist in our minds. And then so somewhere in the middle is this term transjective that is used to explain things that transcend being either subjects or objects.
Trans is popular here.
Trans is popular, so we're homos in trans. We're really betting 1,000 here. What do you guys think? Is Bitcoin the subject or the object, or
I
is it both?
reckon, like, if you're thinking about, is Bitcoin physical? I'm really in the camp that it is. If you treat anything physical, right, what's something physical? It's like anything that can influence like the outcome of something physical. So forget whether it's physical, can it influence the physical environment? And I'd say a hard yes. Like, look at all the concrete, people digging holes in the ground, like setting up all those mining rigs, all that shit. Massive. So I think from a physical perspective, it's 100% physical. It's our perception that's cooked, not like it fits the category of everything physical that you'd ever want. It's just really small. Those electrons that sit on a disk are really, really small. But it's still physical. It's still influencing, matter and energy. So I think it's a fair game. And with it liveth on, one thing I'd say, guys, about the liveth on is sort of like try and just sort of extend beyond our whole lives. We've only ever thought of money because it's been the missing necessity that we don't have. Like we're all born on Earth, we all get oxygen for free, but money is kind of like oxygen, but we don't get it for free. We've got to figure out how to acquire it. And so Bitcoin is this. I think past that, after we figure out Bitcoin, it sort of pacifies that sort of let's call it anxiety that you've got since you've been born forever. You sit down at work and it's oh, Matt, it's 5 o'clock. Or, it's 10 to 5, only 10 more minutes left. And you're like, oh, wait, 25 years and 10 minutes. Yeah, when you go home from work. And it's sort of Bitcoin can kind of take that out and then give us some more, a bigger, deeper, longer perspective. And so when you say Bitcoin liveth on, I feel it becomes this thing talking about transcendence and stuff. If we're thinking about stuff that lasts for ages, what that does as a society, we start thinking much more long term. And I saw someone's speech, it was yours, where you had the QVB, the beautiful building, Queen Victoria building. And it's why does everything look like dog water, like toilet water now as buildings? Because the incentive is very ephemeral. Or you basically build this building to flog it for money, not to have pride in our city so we can attract tourism, because tourism wasn't the norm in 1900 or whatever. So you build these beautiful buildings to say, look at our architectural, engineering capacity, look how beautiful our city is. And I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh yeah, the incentives, yeah. So we've got to think longer term. So we built beautiful buildings and did all this great stuff because we had a bigger time horizon. But as we all become more empowered as individuals to do everything, so it's oh, I've got a phone in my pocket, I can do everything myself, we miss this, we start becoming more short-term orientated. And I think that's just the nature of innovation. And Bitcoin's it feels like the universe has stepped in to slow us down and be listen, you fucking idiots. It's Bitcoin's arrived, Satoshi's given it to us, and it's basically a way for us to think not in seconds, but in 10-minute blocks. And that extension of understanding our wealth growing, being patient, it's basically forcing patience to us. And I think that's the absolute necessary ingredient you want for something that is persistent. If this is the first piece of persistent technology that humanity's ever built, then this needs to set a very big standard. And so we as people need to adapt to the idea of persistence. We invented ephemerality because we've got limited resources, and that's our problem. Persistence is sort of what every civilization has done in the past. Look at everyone's trying to flex their penises. Not literally the penises, but the Egyptians built a big pyramid. Hey, look at our engineering prowess. Stonehenge, engineering prowess. All this stuff comes down to we're trying to basically send a message for as long as humanly possible about our work. It's a proof of work. And Bitcoin liveth on is it's our digital pyramid. If we were the pharaoh, Egyptians and shit, Satoshi's King Tut. Guys, I want a massive fucking pile of blocks. And that's what this is. It's just digitally rearranged a bit differently. Same, but.
Would you classify the obelisk in Washington, D.C. as a metaphorical or a literal penis?
Which one?
The obelisk in the middle of,
the big
Washington
pointy
Monument.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that. But
no.
You said penis, and I had to tag along.
Oh, no.
You're proving that you're a homo. Understood. I think what you're circling around there is time preference, right? And this is something that...
Circling around. No, sorry.
Those are the balls. Yeah. Well, the entree's been served. Now we move on to the main dish. What you're circling around there is the concept of time preference. And that's something that before Bitcoin, I didn't even really know what that meant, or I didn't even think about that. And to your point about building great feats of engineering, you've seen that sort of dissipate over time. It's just what do we put up cheap, fast, and nasty? Just get the job done, and then the buildings fall over, and we just patch them back up and start all over again. We don't do this. We don't do the things. Yeah. The exact quote, and I'm paraphrasing, is eluded me, but the men that plant trees that don't get to sit under it because the trees won't bloom until 150 years. That is a very selfless act to plant that tree knowing that you'll never actually get to enjoy the shade of it, but the future generations will. And I feel like that's what Bitcoin is sort of doing again. And this may end up being, to your point, one of the greatest feats of engineering that we've ever come across in 1,000 years. No longer will we look back at the pyramids and say, oh my God, how amazing. We'll look back at the Bitcoin blockchain and say, oh my Lord, what a beautiful thing. Do we want to explore a little bit about time preference and how that changes the way we think?
I mean, like I was talking about the buildings earlier because I think they're just such a smoking gun around. We can travel around the world and see these beautiful remnants from how we used to think about building the physical world around us, and just then experience this mass cognitive dissonance that we actually don't realize we don't do that anymore. And it fundamentally has to do with this drag factor that we have to bake into every calculus we do. With every economic calculus has to factor in the fact that the money is melting. So we can today think about building a building that took 20 years to build because the price of lumber has gone up 800% in the last 20 years. So there would be no way to think about things in the way that we were 150 years ago. So I love this idea that Bitcoin is a marvel of engineering, and I'm sure that almost in the same way, people look at Bitcoin today the same way we look at the QVB, and we struggle to comprehend that we don't do that anymore. It's like you can look right at Bitcoin and really not appreciate like the complexity and marvel of like this thing is really truly one of the most astonishing human achievements we've ever witnessed, and somehow in spite of that we live in a time where maybe still 80% of the world thinks it's a hoax or non-substantive, temporary flash in the pan.
We really do sound like nerds talking about Bitcoin as a beautiful piece of engineering, right? Like, how do you compare that next to a beautiful building? Like, it's hard to fathom that now because we're so early. But I think, to your point, in the future, we're going to look back on that and think, wow, that was really quite a beautiful piece of artwork. That's how I think about Bitcoin. It makes me tear up occasionally when I'm like, oh God, it's so perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing, as far as I know, that we've built that we can't break. Like, literally. So I literally, right now, call the military, you can stop a comet hitting the Earth. You can decompose a nuclear warhead much easier. But you can't stop Bitcoin. You cannot stop the next block from being produced. That is, just forget everything you've ever heard about, the economics and the supply chain, and fuck all that shit. Hi, would you like to invest in something? It's the first thing humanity's ever made that we can't break. Oh, no, my mate who's got 20 seconds experience told me not to. I'm being polite. We can't break it. Do you want to borrow it? No, thanks. I'm worried about the future of that investment. That just shows how conditioned we are. Like, this is an aha moment for me too, but like, that's fucking nuts. No, I'm going to invest in these other things that are going to get, decompose, break, blah, blah, blah. It's the invention of the wheel, but the wheel can't break. Fuck, that sounds like an all right trade. Doesn't it? Feels all right. Like, you can't break it. That's a great, like, from an engineering perspective, that's what I anchor my thought to. Like, fuck, we can't break it. Impressive. No. Yeah.
To expand on the point of time preference, my grandfather had a saying. He said, that which you can do without, you own. And it took me like decades to really comprehend how deep that quote is and what it means. And I needed Bitcoin to happen to fully comprehend it. Because when you have something that will go up in value forever, and the reason it will is that people get better at doing stuff. And when we have something absolutely scarce, you have abundance in everything else. Everything else gets cheaper over time, right? So that means you're not very likely to spend that stuff. You will only use it for things you really, really want and can't live without. So things you can't do without, that's what you'll spend it on. What that means is quality over quantity. So we'll still buy stuff, and there's stuff like Jevons paradox that explains why we still will buy more of good stuff that actually needs it, but we will sell our excessive chairs and excessive property and sell all the bullshit. Like, we won't ship, giant ships full of containers full of shit from China to give each other as Christmas presents every year. Like, consumerism goes away and gets replaced by people being awesome to one another and buying quality over quantity stuff, and just this beautiful world. If you can do without a Lambo, you own all the Lambos. because you have something better. You've seen that meme that ends with like the how long you've been in Bitcoin, and the real true Bitcoiner just wears a robe and doesn't need shit. I really love that because like I think that's a better world for everyone. Like I like good shit as much as anyone else, and I like the ability to travel to go here and have the. But the reasons the planes work and everything, that's all due to the free market. And the only, all the shit that comes along with it, like the fucking security checks and whatnot, and all the tedious stuff, that's all interventionism. So what happens, there's this great book that I love that has the most sexy title I've ever heard, Economic Science and the Austrian Method by Hans Hermann Hoppe. And which he explains that property is actually the bridge between the objective realm and the subjective realm. So it's how we act, or action is the bridge, rather. So it's how we act, show how we subjectively value things in the objective world. And if you have a perfect representation of that, or damn near perfect, Bitcoin never needed to be perfect, it just needed to be good enough to last forever. But if you have something like that, resources won't be misallocated anymore, because what you get when you don't have that is like what we have now, which is 5,000 years of poisoned history books. They're all poisoned by some people regarding themselves as worth more than other people, not because they actually worked harder and accomplished more things and provided more proof of results, if you will. I don't like proof of work. I think that's very Marxist. But proof of results. So, where was I going with this?
Oh, shit. I'm drinking.
So you're getting into this state of the world where everything's just more awesome.
Well, no, I know what you're saying. Basically, back to your grandfather's quote, where it's sort of like you own everything that you don't need, basically. You command it. It's sort of like an addiction, right? If you're addicted to something, once you control that addiction, you own it. And so, like, as in you're in control of it. And that's like a sort of level of ownership. But I think, basically, Bitcoin needs to come with a warning label. Like, when you fire up the software, it goes, warning, you're about to become the best tight ass you've ever met. Because you just figure out real quick what's not adding value to your bank balance or whatever, your dollar value, because we walk into Bitcoin hypnotized. I've got to make money so I can survive on planet Earth. And so you go there and you're like, oh my God. And you start realizing, well, fuck them, I'll put them on eBay, like take my shoe off and chuck it on eBay and sell it so I can buy more Bitcoin. Michael Saylor talking about selling kidneys, people talking about selling the chairs they're sitting on, but it basically starts becoming a compass of value where it sets a standard in your life that you probably have never seen before. This is what it was for me. It set a standard of like discipline, focus, and just consistency that I'd never seen. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And then everything else around me was like, well, that's still not worth selling Bitcoin for though. And so like these things, it's like, the cars, the this, the that, you sort of go, you feel like that's almost the sucker's trade. That's the legacy thinking, and you kind of reapply it and you go, nah, I'm just going to keep just chipping away, adding some Bitcoin every month, and maybe you spend some Bitcoins on an experience that was a long-term goal or something near and dear to your heart, something more meaningful that can add to your brain a bit more than just like, look at my watch.
Something you couldn't do without.
Yeah.
Makes me think about like that back to this earlier point around the subject and the object. And I really believe that Bitcoin is an inward journey that it starts internally and then presents outwardly. So after you've rewired how you think about the world, then the things that you start to do and where you spend your time and the people you want to talk to, all these things subsequently alter around you to adopt to the way you've changed how you think. And this is, to your same point about, so I think that as people simultaneously adopt this same framework for thinking all over the world, this is when we start to really see these broad-scale changes that Knut was describing, where we stop with the consumerism and we start, being unwilling. Really, I think this is where it really goes is there is a threshold where you will no longer be willing to trade your Bitcoin for shit. And so once that has been achieved, it's like a binary 0-1. So that then applies to the buildings we build, why do we have refrigerators and wash machines that need to be replaced every 5 years? Like these are all things that should have been solved. but these are all extensions of the sort of peak fiat mentality where everything has to be built to break so that we can replace it and build more. And all of that is going to end.
Fiat is theft. Like all inflation is theft. Someone is stealing your time and making you work for them and not for yourself, which means fewer, like people use means to reach ends. Money is one such means that they can use to reach their own individual ends. And fewer ends will be met if someone is able to steal a part of that in every transaction that is ever made, which is what we live in now. So we live in this world where we're so used to seeing economics be this winner-take-all game and that you have to fuck people over to make money. It's simply not true. We all had the capacity to just collaborate and not fuck each other over all the time. The only reason that violence exists, really, is that it's people think it's profitable for them. But when we could have just communicated with one another, which is all Bitcoin is, by the way, it's all information, it's all communication. So there are two ways in which human beings can interact. They can interact voluntarily or involuntarily. And I think it's, when you just see it as simple as that, it's so obvious that one is better than the other for everyone. So wouldn't we want world peace and stuff like that? You know what Michael Jackson sang about, and help the children, all that stuff. Like, all you need is love, all that stuff. Well, we can have it. We already have it. It's already here. We just need to fucking adopt it.
Awesome. Okay. There's some crazy, crazy thoughts coming out here, which is really exciting. But it's all tying in quite nicely with how I led this conversation. So we're sort of seeing Bitcoin is very much alive. Bitcoin is very much giving us hope. Bitcoin liveth on. You know, that's really, really awesome. And it's obviously we all get it and we can explore these ideas. And it's all well and good to think about a future where we all love each other and it's awesome. And, you know, we all hope for that. But the problem is, you know, there's only a few hundred of us in this room here today. And that information has not yet scaled across to any sort of meaningful amount of people to make that world come to reality. So what is it going to take for us to see this type of thinking permeate across a large enough amount of people to hit a critical mass where we actually start to reverse some of these mistakes that we've been making over the last century and however long?
Have you guys ever heard of the 99 monkeys theory?
99 monkeys?
Yeah. So
Tell us.
There was a study that was conducted on the island of Kushima in the 50s in Japan where researchers were teaching monkeys to wash sweet potatoes, knowing that the sweet potatoes tasted better when they were washed. And so the story goes that the monkeys started to teach each other how to wash the sweet potatoes, and after a certain threshold had been reached, then spontaneously, monkeys in a totally separate part of the island with no exposure to the monkeys who had learned the skill started exhibiting the behavior on their own. And so this is this idea of like threshold collective consciousness. And this is where I think it's going, where at a certain point, we will just hit a number where, and how we will observe that in the physical world is Bitcoin will start doing Bitcoin stuff and it'll be like $10 million, $50 million, and it won't matter if 80% of the people understand it or not. There will be a critical threshold that has been achieved, and then at that point, maybe some kind of like spontaneous awareness.
This is, it's very simple. It's the Heinz ketchup theory, right? Gradually, then suddenly. So, and it's all because of Metcalfe's law. The value of a communications network is equal to its number of users squared. So it's an exponential growth thing. So the number of Bitcoiners on Earth doubles every X time interval. And what that looks like, it's people don't understand exponentiality. So like if you fold a piece of paper 50 times, it reaches from here to the moon. Like, so just the width of the paper. Now you can't do that because of objective reality. But if you could, like theoretically, most people don't think in exponentials. And this is why we're so blind to what's actually going on. Because we're on a hockey stick path, even though it might feel like it's taking a lot of time and it's going slowly. Bitcoiners are everywhere. And Bitcoin is in everyone, sooner or later. Or anyone.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think,
But give us a time frame then. Come on.
what, for full adoption?
Well, yeah, I mean, then you have to define what full adoption is. But, reaching that critical mass point, let's say we can define it, whatever that looks like. What are we looking like here? Like, I always used to say to people, talk about 70 years or 7 decades for credit cards to be adopted globally.
You don't measure time in blocks?
Yeah.
Sure, we could do it in blocks, yeah, an average of 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say by the 2 millionth block, which is sort of, like call it 15 years or something like that from now. Yeah, we should be, like, as every nation state adopts it, like in a strategic capacity, then every nation state is going to have an interest in mining control, node levels. Like, because let's imagine I'm a country. My whole future of my entire country, trillions of dollars, depends on the future of this network. You're damn right I'm getting every mofo in my country that has a node or wants to has a computer, they're running a node. They're going to get a tax discount for running one too. Because the node is the network. The node runners, like the block size wars taught us, it didn't matter if Coinbase had 20 million users. Coinbase has one node. And that was a really interesting thing in the block size wars. It was like, well, these big companies that control the surface area of a lot of these, surface area of the wallets and users, you'd think they've got the biggest pool, but because it's a node vote, they don't. So I think countries are actually going to be kind of the tail wagging the dog, or whatever the saying is, where they're going to be so invested in their bags that they're going to be like, all right, well, fuck, we need every person mining in this country, like mining our shit, securing our bags. We need everyone running a node, because
That's
if
the
anything
game theory,
happens...
right?
This is dangerous territory.
Well, no, but this is what's going to... I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I feel like this is a path of execution. Because if I was running the country...
And we need to
bags
disobey that. We need to really fucking disobey that. Because if the government can say what a node is, they can also say what a node not is, what it isn't. So if they set the rules, then we lose permissionlessness, and then we're fucked.
Oh, no, I don't think they're setting the rules. I think they'd be like, basically like, for example, in Australia, the government would come out and be like, all right, everyone call Catan and get him to set you up a node. Like, that kind of thing,
Ministry of Nodes just went through the roof.
Yeah, they'll be leveraging the industry because they have to now. Because if you're a poison apple in the industry, then the US government's bags are getting affected. And now they're going to start beating me over the head with a stick if I'm like poisoning the network. So I reckon there's a really good opportunity for this kind of like harmonious win that kind of falls organically. But the idea that not forcing, but the incentives for motivating citizens to run nodes, I think that's a thing. I reckon that'll get there. Like, I'd do that if I'm trying to protect my bags.
The counter argument to that is that that's the only thing governments don't want. Government is not your friend; it's your enemy.
No, I'm imagining it.
It wants to control the money supply. It wants to extort you.
Yes.
So, like, taking away their capability to do so is what's crucial here. This is about separating.
Will they
money
be able
and
to,
mafia.
though? They've spent the last 15 years
They
battling
can't. Now
Bitcoin, and
they've
Bitcoin's
gotta kiss
only
the
just gotten stronger.
They have to kiss the ring. That's why I think it's not a worry.
And this is like, as much
Wait, which
as I
ring are we
hate,
talking about?
I hate the fact that governments have Bitcoin now, but at the same time, like, I can't do anything about it, and neither can anyone else. But what gives me hope is that the government doesn't actually have the Bitcoin. Some guy at Coinbase does. So
They're still not organized.
Yeah.
I think, for me, this time horizon, like, is it 15 years? I'm a average intelligence at best person. I think, like, a lot of 80 IQ. I think it's just, if I can figure this thing out, it's not going to take enough people that much longer. So the one thing for me is, like, when I hear Michael Saylor talking about a Bitcoin price in dollars 30 years from now, like, Bitcoin's going to return 21% a year for the next 25 years. And if it does that, then it'll be somewhere between $13 million and $21 million per coin. In my mind, my reaction to that is, how could something possibly outperform every other asset by that significant a margin for that long and not have enough of the rest of the world be like, we should probably own some of that, or probably own a lot of that, or why would I own anything else? So, like, I don't know if that's 2 years or 6 years, but it's not 25.
I'm going to be pessimistic here and say that it's a couple of generations away.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen that fast. You have to think, if you think of your average citizen, do you think they're clever or not? And now half of the people are more retarded than that person. Like it takes time, man. But that's fine. Bitcoin is not for everyone, it's for anyone. Like, not every person on earth is not going to run their own node and even hold their own keys. That's just not going to happen. Like, because some people are just not capable of doing that. We have to, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Bitcoin still helps everyone because it makes civilization stronger and everything else stronger. So everything gets better, even for the people not using Bitcoin. And that's what's so... Yeah, that's another mind-blowing thing.
I think. Can I make one more point?
We'll finish up here. Finish it up, Scott.
Yeah, I think that I heard some really interesting arguments about this concept of the future of mining belonging to nation states, and the same need for freedom is going to apply at the nation state level. So if Syria wants to be able to guarantee their own ability to participate in the global financial system, they're going to need 1% of the hash rate. And so that they can guarantee 1% of the blocks will be all of the Syrian transactions for that day. And so I think that it doesn't matter if the 50% of the average people won't get there. The hierarchy of nation states is just such that the disempowered and financially downtrodden countries, I think, will have no choice but to push it. And to me, that's what really triggers kind of an unstoppable game theory where, if they're using it to circumvent power will do what it does and just try to exert.
Yeah, still the beauty of that is that now the same rules applies to everyone. Everyone on Earth can do this. For a very small amount of money, you can run your own node. And which means you can verify the transactions coming in. You can circumvent everything, which gives power back to the people and away from the parasites. And that's what we want. We want separation of money and state, which really is separation of state and everything. That's where that vector leads. And most people need to understand this is a good thing. The more we can do stuff voluntarily, the better off we are. The less misallocation of resources, the less stupidity.
Here. Yeah, thank you. Look, I think we'll wrap up there, but Bitcoin liveth on.
Bitcoin giveth on.
Bitcoin liveth on.
Bitcoin liveth on.
First it liveth, then it giveth away.
Let's give a round of applause to the three beautiful gentlemen here, Knut, Scott, and Michael. Thank you very much.